I'm happy to be able this morning to talk about perspectives in completing a proposal related to the topic strengthening health and disease modeling for public health decision-making in Africa. In line with our protocols for understanding the wider ambience of projects that are led or supported by AfriWorld Higher Education and Research Observatory, or Oseloka Global Education and Analytics. My interest in this project is to look at how to achieve two perspectives. One, delimit the angle of the proposal we are trying to submit to a technical area, which from the themes of this program must be about mathematical modeling plus epidemiological models of infectious diseases generally, the wider technical context, which is led by Professor M.O. Ibrahim, but also focusing on a disease area that is known to be pretty prevalent and pervasive in the nature of challenging problems that it creates in the health space generally. And out of possibilities there involving malaria, for instance, tuberculosis, HIV, and a plethora of such kind of diseases that are infectious, we may have decided to narrow down malaria because malaria is known to be a killer, a heavy killer disease actually in Africa compared to the other ones. And therefore we want to go for it. Additionally, we know that if we are able to create or submit a fairly comprehensive proposal based on this current call, we are able, to follow on with adapting the particular proposal to all these other DD conditions. So if we consider that there are about 10 serious infectious diseases that are prominent around Africa involving Ebola and other type of cases, involving SARS, involving, coronavirus, for instance. Despite some of these diseases haven't actually had vaccines, for instance, it means we have a lot of intellectual mileage to cover once we're able to put in place a very deeply thought out proposal, which I don't think is difficult given the nature of guys involved in incubating the proposal. But what is important in writing proposals that have that kind of mileage is, one, to look at the keywords in the topic and see that we're hitting the bullseye of both the technical niche of the project as well as the wider ambience. So if we're talking about strengthening health, what it means is that there has to be a sufficiently deep or in-depth understanding of the wider context of health policies and the particular regions or continents that we are talking about. So Africa, for instance, that leads to us thinking about how do we involve protocols from international health bodies like the World Health Organization or donor organizations that support a lot of work in that area. Biggest Melinda Gates Foundation, which happens to be a partner in this program with Wellcome Foundation. Also think about, apart from Biggest Foundation, other foundation, USAID, for instance, Rockefeller Foundation, and a lot more, funding bodies across the, global care helix, across academia, public services, especially ministries of health, the ministries of finance and economic development in countries, for instance, that supports some of those initiatives. The ministries of science and technology, And also think about the fact that we're talking about public health here. So if we get an expert in public health, generally who is versed in this, these cross-cutting teams across the WHO, with strong, capacity to translate results, into policy, into actions, into interventions that will ultimately help in stopping the malaise of malaria or any other infectious disease. And I think we have that in Professor Henry Olochukwu, who is a global expert in WHO-related projects. You said you just recently completed a massive review program of USAID interventions in the health space. And by owning his own vehicles, institutes for, tropical disease modeling, for instance, or interventions. And by also working with other collaborators like myself, Patrick Oseloka, in a recent project on the role of the private sector in public health supply chain management before and after coronavirus epidemic. Project sponsored by the African Resource Council, RRC. That capacity to be able to write a proposal that assimilate perspectives from the technical remits of the role of the private sector, leading into wider ambience of the formal sector, the hospital sector, for instance, other informal sectors like local government areas, the Enugu capital metropolis, and of course the Ministry of Health in the States, linked to, heads of communities, linked to even priests in churches, for instance. This ability to run a project that can connect all these planks, all these stakeholder groups, is very important for us. And the best practice in that kind of work we did, which we are going to actually leverage in this particular application, also involve going deeper about the preferences of the users or the citizens, the users, the community members, the policy, makers, which is government and the funding that they can provide sometimes, to be able to carry on interventions that come from the work that is already being sponsored by, through this project, for instance, over a period of time going to from 3 to 5 years. I think it's important, therefore, to be able to say that the composition of the principal investigators and the co-investigators, 3 of us, Professor Emo Ibrahim, leading the Mamariku remit, modeling remit, myself leading the entire tapestry of statistical design, including statistical analysis plans, SAP, which is a detailed, blueprint for designing surveys that lend themselves to adequate mixed modeling, qualitative and quantitative analysis, analysis of huge data sets that come from about 36 states in Nigeria, for instance, which of course requires techniques in data science, techniques in understanding the need for the insights that are being developed, the information dashboarding and modeling using Power BI, for instance, using advanced Excel analytics, using Tableau, things like that, and Python, for instance. And of course, the data visualization capacities of other software like SAS, SPSS, and so on and so forth. I think when that happens, given that the questionnaire that will be designed to probe the actions, the feelings, the expectations, needs, and pain points of members of the communities that this malaria affect, which is across the entire Nigeria, for instance, is a key point in separating ourselves from the rest of the pack in terms of the different groups that we write in different proposals. Because of that, we are going to mainstream capacities in user-centered design. Because the idea is when we get the results, we are not the kind of guys that stop at just submitting results and publishing papers only. We publish the papers, but we go beyond that to start implementing, interventions. And you cannot implement interventions of the manner we're talking about that come from user-centered design without fundamentally understanding the user needs, fundamentally understanding, for instance, the feelings of the communities about that particular problem or disease, understanding their actions, understanding their expectations, understanding also who they are in terms of categorizing them in terms of what we call personas in user research. And there's a lot more things to come when, for instance, if we want to develop, informatics, medical informatics, through maybe a properly situated website that keeps collecting information and enabling us to make predictions, so on and so forth. And insight development always that can inform continual interventions in the space. And that intervention will also include updating existing information that we have already collected in the primary data collection phase through the surveys, linked to secondary information that actually live in the archives of the Ministry of Health, for instance, and the State Ministry of Health, for instance, and the Federal Ministry of Health, for instance. These are the issues. And being able to scrape data, global data around to give us a comparative base for being able to situate the African experience, the Nigerian experience, for instance, within that milieu of the global understandings about malaria as, a disease area, for instance. These capacities involve what is called real-world evidence in the modeling of health data across boundaries. And this involves things like health economics, for instance, health technology assessments, and the policy imperative that flow from that. But of course, we're not going to overextend, the boundaries of the research because of this. But I'm just trying to say, through this particular, the voicing of my thinking about what we are going to do, not just with this project, but connecting other follow-on projects that we have already seen from studying the context of the war. Okay. And then when we're looking at, when you say modeling for public health decision making, that already we've covered the fact that it's imperative that we must link it to the public health agenda, WHO, of which Professor Henry is the lead. And I enjoyed a lot of the experiences brought to the South African project that we completed a year ago. Okay. To understand the 6 key areas of policy impact that the World Health Organization normally looks at, to understand additional areas of, criteria, for impact coming from other development agencies like USAID is very important. Now, but if you look at what is called decision making really as a theme in this, overall theme of the work, you will see that you cannot avoid understanding the entire tapestry of decision making and then being able to pick and choose what is important. In decision making, for instance, you may want to go extremely technical about that in terms of, is it operational research where you're using mathematical systems to be able to make choices? But decision making in the public health is far more qualitatively leaning than quantitative, than the nature of things you do in operational research. So we are looking at decision making that comes from the perspective of user-centered design and research, linked to, therefore, service design, designing the services that will support the interventions that we have in mind. Of course, you also look at decision making in terms of the policies that we cut across the global care helix, academia, industry sectors, government, departments, and wider society. Okay, I think that's the kind of decision making we're looking at. Of course, there is public choice. Public choice theory will come in. Within that, you look at health economic modeling, for instance, health technology assessment, real-world evidence. But when we go down through this, we'll be able to see what's actually important among these perspectives. So that covers my unpacking of the main theme of the work in terms of the key concepts. Okay. The particular call for the funding talks about, funding for projects led by researchers based in Africa to use modeling approaches to address key areas related to health and infectious disease while strengthening the modeling ecosystem in Africa. So it talks about ecosystem modeling. That's very important because the ecosystem modeling for me, or from my point of view, must be therefore an ecosystem that connects all I've said again before, connects the wider environment, the context of the research, the technical units in mathematical modeling of infectious disease, epidemic models. Of course, there are a lot of techniques coming from there. If you look at the book by Anderson and May, Infectious Diseases of Humans, Oxford University Press, that is a Bible in the area. If you look at also basically general books on biostatistics, for instance, a methodology for the health sciences by Lloyd Fisher and Gerard Van Bell, these are the kind of references we must be talking about. If you then look at also books like I think there is another powerful book there we can also involve, which is published by Blackwell, and that is called Statistical Methods in Medical Research. These are fundamentally, base fire references in the field. Okay, but my understanding of ecosystem, therefore, is to find a way of bringing in these strands that connect technical remits, statistical modeling, and informatics and analytics, that entire mosaic. Then you talk about also, therefore, the policy arena, for instance, the linking of actors across the care helix, so that the project result will be able to impact, advanced work in academia itself, policy-based interventions in the public services, which is public health particularly, industry sectors, support for industry sectors in the health space. So we talk about the health sector generally. Well, the health sector is quite big, so stakeholders there involve hospitals themselves, management of hospitals, the private sector like, private laboratories, private pharmacists, and all these other stakeholders, some of which we also covered in the ARC project. So that ecosystem is important, and we need to be able to see which strands will matter much in this. What is important to me is that if you look at the cost of a program, if the cost of a program is about £3 million for 3 years to 5 years, I think much more is required of us. We must play the ecosystem agenda. Now, one other thing we must do is to look at Africa, which is a theme in the work. Africa is the focal point of the work. So what it means, therefore, is that we also have to look at comparative approaches by some other African-based organizations. I am particularly fascinated by the ARC's, African Resource Center's, model for intervening in the policy space, and we can adapt that in this research, and we have that particular framework anyway. Okay. The proposal goes on to say that the key areas include modeling to understand the impact of environmental change. So the modeling we are doing must involve an understanding of environmental change on infectious disease. So we need to look at the environmental influences on the disease infectious disease we are trying to model, that's malaria parasites. So it talks about malaria, dengue, and schistosomiasis, and to inform optimal control strategies. So the emphasis now on interventions about optimal control. So again, the literature we are going to run on this must, and I mean must, emphasize optimal control. And we must link the optimal control concept to user-centered research. One word, because it's a big project. We have enough time to play all this. It also talks about successful applicants will be connected to development of collaborative activities. That's fine. We are already, to me, extremely experienced in collaborative work because we have bothered for a long time now to master intricacies involved in, extending impact across the KOLs, as global KOLs, as already mentioned. So when the collaboration should be the kind of thing we'll be able to say the angle from which we're going to make that collaborative activities even stronger, formalized through the KOLs concept. But if the aim is to increase the impact of the model-based evidence produced, yes, but how do you get the kind of evidence base that is not only holistic, but at the same time technically deep, in order to carry the nature of, impact, and the fact that impact should be model-based. The model-based there is coming from technical model in mathematical modeling of infectious diseases, which will, of course, we've put together a couple of references, and Professor Mohammed will actually, give us a far deeper take on the literature base for that. Because he's worked a lot in that area, provides PhDs in the modeling of infectious diseases, which is his main area, and as well as done a lot of projects in that area. Of course, we'll support with other things we do. But I'm also thinking in terms of if you want to make that impact formidable, then you have to talk about real-world evidence, scraping data, comparative global data, that will form a baseline for comparing our results against what obtains elsewhere. That requires RWE, which is called real-world evidence. And real-world evidence, of course, is one of the key interests of World Health Organization and other global bodies, for instance. So that's okay. We're going to play that. And the use of the modeling by decision makers. Who are decision makers? So we must think about stakeholders again. Come back to user-centered research. Stakeholders. The triangle of stakeholders that happen in the health space is mainly, for instance, ministries, pharma sector, all hospitals, and other medical and paramedical establishments that are involved in treating that disease. You see, coming. Of course, now all the users, stakeholders, all the consumers of the results of the intervention. That's the key, the minimum viable arrangement of stakeholders. Of course, there are other people that can come in, policyholders, for instance. Okay. So that covers that. And it talks about, again, preliminary applications, for instance. Foundation, it says, okay, that the call is a collaboration between Wellcome and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. We must make sure that we look at the website for Wellcome, which we're already working on, and the website for Melinda Gates to be able to sift, the commanding interest in those websites. When we talk about the wider ambience of research, this is the nature of connections we must make in the proposal. I'm happy that the system we're using to write proposals accommodates all these perspectives. And for the next 7 hours, we'll be trying to funnel all the things we've done individually on this proposal through that particular system. It is my contention and my belief that if we're able to do this, to pass even the brief proposal that is required of us tomorrow morning, or today actually, through that system, it prepares us actually, if we are shortlisted, to release the final, integrated proposal before the deadline when that time comes. The opportunity we also see in this project is not necessary to think that we must win this project, no, but to think that we write a proposal that we can adapt to other circumstances and actually rejig the proposal and resubmit it to other bodies. There are, hundreds of funding bodies, so that's not an issue, So we'll come to one other important thing there, that preliminary applications for both Wellcome and Bid are open now. So we are doing that already, no problem. And visit the Grand Challenges website to read more and apply, including the bill award information, which exactly is what I said. You must understand who we are trying to satisfy. The schema at a glance. He says the career stage should be early career researcher. All of us are early. Age is a number, as far as I'm concerned. Established researchers, we belong to that more now. We're not, okay, let's say technically we're not early career researchers. But of course, our students, our PhD students, our field workers, coming from different fields, medical, public health, coming from, advanced modeling in epidemiology and mathematical biology, for instance, including the modeling of infectious diseases. Those particular postdocs, as well as MSCs, as well as other academics, some of them are young. Some statisticians that will join the statistical program, because these three main areas are programs, actually. Let me say, there are projects or sub-programs under the wider program of the proposal. So we're thinking about program management now. Okay, that's good. So in that case, we know that, therefore, we again must make sure that the people that are involved in the work to benefit from the code phase of how this work is done, just like in the ARC project, must cover those key career stages. The early ones, they must cover the established ones ourselves, they must cover leading people that have the capacity to lead research programs. 3 or 4 have the capacity, that's fine. They must cover mid-career researchers. Of course, most of these other field assistants and statisticians and will also be mid-career. Postdoctoral research, I said that already. About 8 PhD students supervised by Professor M.O. Ibrahim will actually join the program as postdocs. That is exactly the way we want to play. Of course, some of the students we put, supervised in statistics, for instance, will also join that. And some of the, field assistants that we use in the AROC project, some of them even have their doctorates, will also join that. So we have a lot of doctoral, postdocs and docs that can actually do the work. Okay, that covers that. And also those who are returning to research. Who can we call those? About 6 groups now. People that return to research. People that return to research are also maybe policymakers and professionals in the cure helix. Some of them may be in public services, for instance, who are extremely interested in research. They may be in the research departments of the ministries of education and other public health related organizations. They may be actually, researchers within hospitals, consultants that share, that do both, in hospital treatments of these diseases, for instance, infectious diseases, units in hospitals, who, because of their interest in research, are equally serving as lecturers in the teaching hospitals. So these maybe, but those who have not been very active in research have done a lot more in, the practical, the practice of medicine itself, the daily practice, ward rounds, and can occasionally say they want to be interested in research, something like that. So we're going to have to involve them. And those are the public agencies that also want to take a bite in the research apple, if we can use that language, will also be there. So we've covered about 7 clicks. If we can hit as many of these, that will be a good hygiene factor for winning the project. Okay. When they talk about where your administration organization is based, is Africa, then, well, of course, the University of Ilori is the base for the work because the lead in this program is Professor M.O. Ibrahim. He is a co-principal investigator with myself, but I'm not based in Africa. I am based in Africa, truly. Okay, so that's how I come in, because I don't come in from my UK outfits or my UK higher education research and innovation perspective. So I come in from the point of view of the International Center for Research and Enterprise Development, which is the one I will be emphasizing in this application. Also, Coast City University, which is where I'm a professor. So in that case, I always politic that. Of course, whereas the headquarters of whatever we are doing is in Lorry, okay. Of course, the funding when it comes, we mapped out into tranches, controlled by all of us for the the work streams we are managing. In that case, our institutions, one way or the other, benefit. Okay. So, for instance, Professor Henry is based both in the CCU, which is Coast City University, is also based in is the deputy provost of the Federal University of David Umahi Federal University of Medical Sciences. It's a new federal institution, built by the immediate past governor of Ebonyi State, David, who is now a senator, and now actually a minister, to be honest, Minister of Works or Minister of Transport, for instance. So in that case, all of us are locally based, and we all have international exposure anyway. So that's okay for us. So we covered that. The next thing we look at is the level of funding. The level of funding is actually 3 million. 3 million is uppermost. Because we are normally submitting ambitious programs, we are not going for anything less. But of course, the duration of funding is 3 to 5 years. I believe that if we are trying to go for 3 million, we're going to go beyond 3 years. That's my thinking. Because one of the philosophies or laws of success that I live by, within what is called the 15 laws of success, one of them is the habit of doing more than you're paid for. So I believe that if we are going for £3 million, which is quite a lot of money, we're looking at 3.6 billion approximately, naira, okay, just using an exchange of £1 to 1,000. But we know even today that it's not £1 to 1,000, it's £1 to 1,315. So if I actually do the correct calculation just for fun, not because we don't work for money really, it becomes 1,315 multiplied by 3 million, which is 3 million. Okay. Pounds. And that will give us good. So it gives us 3.945 billion. So we are looking at 4 billion naira for 5 years. It's a tidy sum. And therefore, we'll give them the best we can ever have. And as far as I'm concerned, that makes it mandatory that we must put this proposal through that integrated system. Otherwise, I don't think we have a chance of winning the call. Okay, that's done. Eligibility and stability, who can apply? They say that we offer the lead applicant must be based in Africa. That is Professor Mo, myself as co-principal investigators, Professor Henry also as co-investigator. Now, proposals must demonstrate that at least 70% of the funding is going to low and middle income country. Okay, 70% is going to Nigeria, isn't it? Okay. Institutions, yeah. And at least 70% for that, 50% of the funding going to African institutions. Okay, so 50 African institutions, does it mean, therefore, that there is room for some other institutions to be involved? Okay, if that is the case, but let's focus it on African institutions. Low and middle income country, LMIC will be 70%. I don't know whether Nigeria qualifies for that. Okay, we are quite rich, but we are poorly managed, so we are very poor at the moment. Okay, why not think of other communities we might involve? Is it Ghana? I don't know, but we can talk about collaborators. We can talk about Central Africa. We can pick other African countries. We don't come to that level, for instance, especially among members of the SSGS Academy. Okay. We'll think about that. And then it also says the proposals must include institutions in high-income countries. In high income, so we have 70% going to low and middle income country. We have institutions with at least 50% of the funding going to African institutions. Okay, I need to dialogue these requirements with Professor Henry, who is our expert in costing for this particular project. Proposal can include institutions in high-income countries. Okay, high-income countries. Okay, is it Nigeria? Okay, so Nigeria at least falls into one category. Okay, maybe South Africa. I don't know what is part of it. Libya. I'm just giving an example. So it says, however, no more than 30% of the project budget can go to such countries. Yeah, because they want to make sure that far more is going to low-income countries. That's fine. The RFP is open to researchers at any career stage. Okay, all of us are involved. Applications led by early and mid-career are encouraged. Okay, okay. Who among us can be that? Okay, there are people who can also, but not necessarily led by. If they say encourage, we don't want to risk saying that. Okay, if we want to create, we can say that facets of the are led by those people, because we have a lot of them. Therefore, we can say some are, sub programs within the overall program or sub projects within the overall program are actually going to be led by those people. Some, I would say, for instance, even in the statistics, the actual analysis of the data, okay, can be led, can be done or led by mid-career investigators, like young faculty that we are involving. Examples are a lot of people, Dr. Nweke, for instance, in statistics, who actually was a co-statistician with me in the IRS program. I can think of more, especially among those PhD students that are also being brought in from Mo Ibrahim's side. Okay, so think about it. And this RFP is open to researchers at any career stage. I've done that. We've talked about that. Application level. Yep. Okay. Applicants must have the experience needed. The applicants must have the experience needed to drive and lead a research program addressing the thematic areas of interest I've already covered. Just for emphasis, the thematic areas, again, are the former triangle of forces. One, the deep technical remit in infectious disease modeling, mathematical modeling, with all the references we talk about. Okay? The alignment, the policy, the research, integration of knowledge, applications, and even teaching, to some extent, alignment with the goals and aims of global health organizations, World Health Organization, and others, for instance, and also ministries and things. And that's very important. So that is where, and then of course, the underpinning all this, the entire system of surveys we're gonna design, interviews, and then, probing user research methods. There are, of course, to be honest about it, about 102 different user research methods. But amongst all these, to be honest, in 80% of the cases, there are what we call base fire approaches, meaning the ones that come up mostly 80% of the time, which is interviews, one-to-ones or whatever group interviews, just call it interviews. Then surveys. The purpose of surveys is to, triangulate the evidence base that comes from interviews. Because interviews are one-to-ones, face-to-face, or however you do it, but it's, asking, different levels of stakeholders, penetrating questions about the interests in the area. But because we are working across 36 states in Nigeria, for instance, who knows whether you are involving other communities to make it a stronger program, Then, of course, you have a lot of data coming through, which you need now to analyze in order to support the work. But the user research aspect is a qualitative work, purely qualitative work, selecting interview, selecting what is called participant observation, selecting what is called AIU, that is what is called taking data when people are actually using systems or people are actually doing something. Not all of them will apply equally. Then interviews. Then, of course, what is called the elicitation of the needs, pinpoints, and actions and feelings of those through the two approaches, both interview and questionnaire, exactly what we did in ARC work. Then, of course, you have to think about the other method, which is very important, which is called usability studies. So usability studies, how do they access, treatment for malaria, for instance? What are the pain points in doing that? What are their personas? If you have their needs, how do you minimize their pain points? Therefore, what are the envisaged solutions and interventions that will be far deeper than if somebody didn't have user research knowledge at all? This is why we have to front load user-centered research in most of these kind of big games. High-stake, high-tariff proposals require that level of depth and scope. One of the principles that we use in justifying this nature of work is what is called the dripping tea model in design thinking. Meaning, the crossbar of the tea is the breadth of disciplines and, contributions from, multidisciplinary perspective of all the kind of things we're talking about. But the tail of the tea itself going down, would be the specializations that matter, which is the three main areas we are talking about. But other things on that crossbar would be health economic modeling, health technology modeling, user research, all those kind of stuff. That is what we'll be telling them we shall do within 5 years. And it will be quite deep when we come up with it. So I think I'll stop there to make sure that I also cover the other things quickly, because after this, I'm going to, writing out my own perspectives and then waiting for the other ones to come so I can integrate them. Of course, I'll be calling MO as well as Henry this morning once I finish this dictation, because this dictation to me is important. Okay, so now that we've done that, it says, okay, if you to have an experience to lead, okay, that's why Trevor said, our profiles will be loaded up, of course, behind the application. We encourage applicants involving projects led by women. Okay, that means we must involve women, but not led by them. So for now, we must bring in a lot of women in the field workers, please, and we'll make sure that this happens when I'm integrating our perspectives. And then we also have to make sure that researchers may participate as co-applicants or collaborators on multiple applications. Oh, multiple applications, but may only submit one application as a lead applicant. Okay. All right. Oh, don't have time to play it. It means that we would have actually given them up to 10 submissions if we wanted. But we didn't see this call early. Okay, let's maximize on this, and then maybe because we know that we develop other things from it, that's not a problem, because next year, other years, that these two bodies are still funding things, but we can also go in and develop, another 6 to 7, variations of this application and send it to different bodies, making sure that the hit rate will be much higher to at least get one of them. So we're going to do that. But I like the fact that they're allowing this type of thing to happen. So one applicant can submit only one as a lead. I may not see myself as a lead, in this one, because the lead is MO, but I could have equally, taken another one and call myself a lead there and bring other people. And then Harry could take another one and call himself a lead. But none of us has that time now, because this thing has to go out this morning. That's not a problem. But what it means is that we have to develop a pretty sharp early warning signal, kind of early identification mechanism for, understanding what is coming on a month ahead, at least 2 months ahead, 3 months ahead, as we've done in the project that we are also doing, with the Institute of Growth and Development led by Chukwuemeka. Because we also had a Zoom meeting with him on that, which we also recorded. We have not transcribed, we've not played back. But after this submission, we'll go to that. For that, we've been able to say that at least there are 7 key projects we can do using the same style as we use in that other proposal. So nothing is lost because we can position things for next year in advance and keep enriching it. So by the time next year comes, we'll just zero in about 4 or 5 applications. There's no way we're not getting something from some of those. Okay. Okay, it now says that the lead applicants must have a permanent, open-ended, it says that, the co-applicant can be based anywhere in the world. Okay, so I'm based in UK, for instance. That's not bad. The lead applicants and co-applicants must be able to contribute at least 20% of their time to this project. We are, at least, let's say, all the other people are contributing 20%. But we are each contributing 2020, so giving us 60%. We can make that argument in the work. And that gives 80, isn't it? So we'll give ourselves, if it's 80, what about the remaining 20? So we might put the 20, put 10 to we'll put another 10 to me. So I think we'll say we are completely 30, 20, that gives us what? 80, then 20 for the other guys. That's the percentage we're going to be playing in the game. That's fine. And it talks about lead applicants must have a permanent, open-ended or long-term rolling contract for the duration of the award. Yes. What it means, I don't know whether the contract is with them or contract with our affiliated institutions. I have a lifetime contract with Oseloka Global Education. I have 5 years solid contract for the center at Ibadan. I also have a long-term contract, at least for now, for CCU. And I know that all of us have very big long-term contracts in our various affiliations, for instance. Okay? And that may be what they mean, but I'm going to understand this more when I talk to Henry now, after this dictation. Okay, it now says also that proposals are limited to 8 co-applicants. Well, only 3. That's okay. Only 3, which is well within the limit. But meaning that we may consider whether bringing in a few more people can be a hygiene factor, for instance. But we can say, okay, these are the people that we join. They're not necessarily part of writing the proposal at the moment. Yeah. So, because I know we are talking about Professor Agwebo, for instance, who is in statistics at FUNAB. I know we are talking about Dr. Wenke, who is from statistics again, but from Alexio Kweme University, for instance, Federal University at Ebonyi State. So we're already 5. Of course, there are a lot of other people. So let's say that, but they are not necessarily co-applicants at the moment because of the shortness of time. But we can say that, okay, our interpretation of co-applicants, is strictly 3 of us leading, but these are the other people that are joining, and we must mention their roles. There is no limit to the number of collaborators. Fine. That is the idea. The more we tell them we're going to spend money on a lot more people to cover all these spaces, 36 states in Nigeria, blah, 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 or 6 regions, possibly double into Ghana, pick a few things there, any other place for comparative analysis, select one other country from all the 5 regions in Africa is a better one. Because all it takes is just use the same techniques, fly down there, stay 2 weeks, gather all the data you want. You can use also local participants there in universities in that place. And that is the idea of the global helix. You show them that you are talking about Africa, all right? It doesn't matter that it's based mainly in Nigeria, but you're talking of Africa. So I think that's the game we're going to play, right? If they are saying unlimited, and you're taking that kind of amount of money from them, you must justify why you're spending the money that way. But well, of course, the number of years 5 also means you can do far more than that. I'm suggesting that it must involve Nigeria, a country from East Africa, Kenya, for instance, but they may not necessarily be involved in writing proposal as we are doing, but they are going to be involved as locations of the study. So we've covered West Africa, we've covered East Africa now, Central Africa, we choose a country, West Africa, yes, Nigeria. North Africa, we choose a country there if we like, but I don't know to what extent. Yes, North Africa. We just can choose any, Algeria, Tunisia, Morocco if we want to go on holidays, but I'm not going to say that. And then, of course, we get down to South Africa then, and then choose any country. We can choose Zambia, we can choose Malawi, we can choose Rwanda. I don't know whether Rwanda is South Africa or Central Africa. So we must take those African countries. The point about going Africa over a 5-year project is that it increases the believability of the submission we're making, and it increases the continental impact. And this is where, in the language or the framing of the proposal, we're going to be talking about global cure helix, the African quadruple helix. Very important. In order to hook, these are hooks that we put when we're writing proposals. Okay? Another thing we can also talk about, to be honest, is okay, very importantly that, but those collaborators, there can be no limit to collaborators, number of collaborators an application can have, but the value them, we must say what each person is doing. That is why the people we are talking already about, we've known their roles. If you do bring in people in a proposal of this class, but you're not telling us precisely what they're doing, you're wasting your time, because you're trying to pad the proposal unnecessarily. Nobody will trust you if you do that. So these are the no-go areas in work that we do. Okay? So there's no minimum time commitment for collaborators. Yeah. No minimum time, yeah, but we already shared out, time for the other collaborators. We say that other ones will be given enough work to do because it's a multi-year project. We encourage the inclusion of data partners. Data scientists, collectors, decision makers, applicants. This is my baby. If we have a full institute for data analytics, which is the Oceloka Analytics Limited, if we have the Sigma Z Statistical Consulting and Analytics, which is in my link tree, that covers every canvas and paraphernalia of analytics, right from statistical modeling, pure statistical decision sciences, data mining, data science, integrated business modeling and analytics, for instance. I think that will be a strong factor for us. But what is important that as we say this, we say completed projects. We must show that we've done a lot of work in that space, using, for instance, the recent work in South Africa. And we'll promise them more when they work, when we win the proposal. So that is a very important one for me. And that makes, that's no wonder actually, for this, that MO initially was saying that I should be a co-principal investigator. I don't play titles in my life. I was okay to be a co-investigator, it doesn't matter. But if he's saying that I should be a co-principal investigator, possibly because of the need to strengthen the entire bedrock of analytics, running from mathematical modeling down to statistical modeling and informatics, that's fine. That's fine by me. These are things I do daily, And the lead applicant must be based at an eligible administrating organization that can sign up to our grant conditions. University of Ilori, a federal university in Nigeria of that class. That's all it takes. That's all it takes. So we are safe. Okay. However, what I can also say is that whenever universities are leading projects, we need to be comfortable with the levers of control that the principal investigator that is administering, which is to be based in Ilori, has. And I am absolutely confident in the esteem of Professor M.O. Ibrahim. If there is a guy in mathematical modeling of in the disease area, he's number one in Nigeria. I'm not trying to eulogize him. I know his works. I know who he is. Okay? We are safe. Okay? We are safe. And when they also see the other institutions that we come from, the affiliations, they're safe. So the minimum viable, base is a university that is properly supervised, that properly managed, that is subject to professional standards as expected of the National Universities Commission. If it is overseas, the same thing. Or any institution registered overseas. You cannot run a business in UK, the one I'm running, if you're not of a credible character. Because you will be put down immediately. So that's the truth about that country. And maybe other Western countries. So we are safe with that. We are safe with that. Who can't apply? This is important. Inclusion and exclusion things are important when you are looking at the minutiae and the nitty-gritty of writing grants. You cannot apply this award if you are based in mainland China. None of three of us are in China. And the purpose for this is that the Western countries are competing with China. So the geopolitical forces that happen in terms of the games that nation play does not allow them to share a lot of knowledge with China. They're actually living frighteningly, they're freaking out about China, to be honest about it. If I want to say the truth, just to remind us, the recent effort by the entire Western powers to galvanize funding to match the amount of billions that China is pouring into this Belt and Roads Initiative, it was a failure. Because if you are trying to match a country that is spending trillions in different developing countries, and you're coming up with only $600 billion, you're not serious. That is why these countries avoid, giving opportunities for people based in China, say Russia. You can't even talk about North Korea. Well, we know the geopolitical forces that actually surround this project. So we are happy that we are not coming from that perspective. You intend to carry out activities that involve the transfer of grant funds into mainland China. We can never do that. Good for now, for these people. But does it mean that if China itself gives us a project in future, we're not going to do? We must do it because the money is coming from them anyway. And of course, that's another thing we must do. China cannot be spending all this money, literally taking over the economies of Africa and developing countries without Africans themselves being involved in running the projects. Because that's another thing we face down once we finish, work, urgent work. We go into strategic negotiations about how to seize some pie of the China projects. Because what happens is that ministers actually, they fall on their sword when they start, looting the Chinese funds. Therefore, their hands are tied, and they're not able to force, to argue comfortably for equitable local content to come from us, or to have enough of our people employed on the Chinese projects. So this is what we need to fight later on. That's another thing to do. Okay. So it can only be an applicant on a maximum of 2 applications. That's fine. So we only put in 1, no problem. To this funding call, irrespective of your career stage, but we are going to be watching for other funding calls and funnel, because I'm looking already at 8 strategic projects from this nature of call, funnel all 8 of them in different related funding bodies, and more each year for these very 2 sponsors. Note, researchers must be able to demonstrate that they can dedicate enough time and resources to all projects if all the projects they are involved in are funded. I don't know how to describe to these people the kind of capacity we have for fast and furious turnaround in research. I'm just thinking today that in about my last 2 years in the university I lectured in UK, Sheffield Hallam University, I was supervising 9 PhD students in one go. And these are on very deep topics, and all of them were completed. So what is the deal? We can push 20 projects using all our platforms easily because we have the personnel. And to me, we meet this condition. But it's also, there is a limit on the number of active welcome awards an individual can hold. Again, 1 at a time, based on career stage. If you already hold other active awards, we welcome from previous funding opportunities. Okay, well, I don't think we've heard anyone. An early career researcher can be a lead applicant on one Wacom award. We are not early career. A mid-career researcher can be a lead applicant on one. We are not mid-career. An established researcher can be a lead applicant on two Wacom awards. So we are only missing out on just another one for three of us. That's okay. Let's do one first. There's a lot of other opportunities. Read more about how many grants you can apply, hold at the same time. We are completely safe from these restrictions. What we offer, 3 million for 3 to 5 years. We are doing 5 years. You should ask for a level and duration of funding that is justifiable per approach. That's why we make it 3 million, 5 years. And this amount can be used to cover. Okay, what we don't offer, funding will not be offered for proposals that are focused primarily on educational or training programs. We know that's why the 80%, the Pareto rule, 80% is on the technical remit, 20% is on the wider ambience. So it's not about just educational training programs. No, it's a detailed research that should be able to come into the top-rated journals. Of course, you have to know that I have a disdain for traditional journals, but we have to play the game because the criteria for publishing in AfriHero or AfriWorld Publishing covers 7 criteria. That of traditional journals covers about 3. So we are superior, but we must make sure that we have a mix of publication. That's what matters. The scopus and all those things, we give it to them, make sure we have them, give it to them. In that case, we are covered. But when we do research, we publish it widely, covering different ranges of journals, especially also mainstreaming some publications within AfriWorld, because it's a more serious system to publish in, even if it's new. Okay, how to apply? It now says, okay, that we must, funding will not be again offered for proposals that aim to conduct clinical trials or randomized controls. So what they're telling us that this is not just about the standard kind of, what is called a clinical research in CROs, clinical research organizations, or so it shouldn't be on, hospital or clinical public care kind of. It should be modern. It should be mathematical modeling of infectious disease. That's what they're looking for. Okay, how to apply? Make your preliminary application for this through the Grant Challenges website. Okay, possibly that's where we are at the moment. Key dates, we know the date now. The main thing now is that this morning, in the next, because we're looking towards 3 o'clock now, a.m. If we're going to submit 11:30, we just have roughly 8.5 hours. Okay, we need 2 hours for final vetting. So we just have about barely 6 hours. Barely 6 hours to push out this beast. That's okay. And then, of course, the full application deadline. The full application deadline is February 24, 20 February. Oh, so invitation for full application. So if we succeed, we're going to be invited for the full application. So really, the preliminary wouldn't be that. But we're gonna rope in all this anyway. But, to be lean, smart, focused, not too embroidered. But once we are called for the full, we give them the whole integrated system proposal. The final decision is in April. Before the April, we could have sent out 6 more proposals along these lines to other bodies, so that if we miss this, we get one of the other ones. Nothing is lost. This is a safe way of working in research, writing grants. Okay. Okay, so we know where to contact them for inquiries and finding a funding opportunity guidance. We read other things. There are infectious disease ones. There are a lot of other areas we can work in. Let me just, talk about them quickly, so that when we are playing back, these things are coming back. The other thing that helps me, once I can voice things, I sometimes don't need to go back to them again, because it appears once I voice, everything is in, and I can just roll out things, hitting all those things. But of course, I go back and check a little bit to see that, okay, fair enough. Usually when I roll it out, without having to look back again or play back, I can get up to 80% of what is there. But by playing back or by looking at the website for the application, I still can cover the remaining grounds. The problem, if you don't voice it out, it is very slow. When you voice it out and you're listening while writing, everything is coming out, because we have, of course, different screens. put this here and then you're doing the other work there. So, okay, good. What do we do? This is about them, isn't it? So the kind of things they do: one, infectious diseases modeling. Infectious diseases is one. Two, so this application goes there. Climate and health. We may work there, in future. Discovery research. This is us. This is where we do a lot of work based on the RIAT. The RIAT actually, the R is normally called D, which is discovery, in the work by Poirier, I think 1970. So actually it's DIAT for him, while it is RIAT for us. So we do what? And that is primary research work in theoretical work, which is discovery research. All our work, and who we are, blah, 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 their strategy. We read this in letter of before the full funding. And I think we have covered now. We have covered. Thank you so much. So I want to summarize that by saying that it's been interesting to be able to have a forensic view of the remits of this call, to be able to mention where I'm coming from, how I relate to the work, and articulate how Professor Mo Ibrahim Ali is relating to the work, how Professor Henry Orochukwu is relating to the work, each of us covering aspects of these three big areas that merge into the proposal. That is the technical remit of mathematical modeling of infectious diseases and allied references, the statistical underpinnings covering data science, covering decision making, because data science involving data mining, to be honest, covering user research in terms of saying that we were going to do that, but we're not playing that too big. Saying that, in order to extend the technical result into the policy space, convincingly that we're going to roll in perspectives in user research. If they go to my website, they will see that we're doing a lot of several projects completed there. And that will involve, as we said, user-centered design, service design, especially user research core, which is the qualitative research, purely qualitative research systems. And then, of course, the mixture of hard evidence with soft evidence. So we need information dashboarding using tools and techniques like Power BI, Tableau, Spark, ArcGIS, so many of them, SPSS, Advanced Analytics, Excel Analytics, even Power Queries in Excel, SAS if we need SAS, the R, Python, these are okay. And that's that, But of course, we're going to use other tools, MyRobots, in order for collaborative work, because we are not co-located. Okay. I think that's that. If we need any other thing, we shall know. But I'm saying as well that we are happy that we can do this. We are happy that we can extend it to other areas. We are happy that we can extend it not just to other disease conditions, right? We can also extend it beyond Nigeria in order to cover at least 5 countries in Africa. They will like that. However, it will be one main country, in each of the 5 regions in Africa. What it does, it gives us a wider evidence base. However, we also talked about bringing in perspectives from real-world evidence, ethic and mixed modeling. Why? Because if you want to go into the policy space, you must understand how to make choices, public choices, that come from the economic modeling, come from the financial perspectives of interventions. We're going to say all this before we submit this brief proposal. If we are lucky to be called to, on the basis of the esteem of this one we're putting through, then definitely we're going to be ready for the full game 2024. However, I also noted that we must to circumvent the possibility of not getting something done in this area. We're going to submit at least another 5 proposals before that 2024 deadline for implementing, or for knowing whether we got the project finally after, if we are lucky to be invited to the, to submit a full one. Our hope here is that it's not a Nigerian-based project where all the forces that deny the good guys, opportunities always happen. political patronage, and so other things. This is why majority of us don't bother too much about TED fund business, because I don't know how to, you work with some guys and give them the best proposals, and yet they are giving the money to those who can give them some money back. And having stayed overseas for nearly 30 years, I'm not that kind of Nigerian. I won't give you a penny, to be honest. But if I do a project, I finish a project, and I'm coming into Nigeria, if I buy you a gift to say, how are you? It's okay. If I give you money for bread for kids, that's okay. But to get a guy like me to give money to get a project, when I know I can run a lot of projects overseas, is silly. There's no wasting my time. What's the exchange rate anyway? Silly. This is why we must improve the rule of law in this country. We must improve the consciousness of our people to make sure that the best are given opportunity, that merit rules in this country. Because what we are seeing here is the sharing of national cake by very few people who actually are driving the country to are grounding the country. That's what I mean, And I will end it there, and I will end it by thanking again immensely Professor Emo Ibrahim for bringing me in, allowing me to also bring in Professor Henry, and we are working as a family. Thank you very much, and God bless. Bye-bye.